Hey guys, I'm Mike Caviani. I'm the Director of Life-Saving Operations here at Austin Pets Alive. And in this video, we're going to talk about a concept called marker training and then how we relate that to teaching eye contact. And eye contact is one of our most favorite things to teach our dogs. We'll talk about why, and we'll talk about how we teach that. So marker training. This is something that you can use to teach really lots and lots of behaviors. We're going to talk about how we use it specifically for eye contact, but you'll see how you can relate it to all sorts of things. So marker training, the most mainstream form of marker training is clicker training. You got your clicker, click, you give your dog food. So a lot of you have probably heard of Pavlov, the scientist back in the day. He had some dogs, he rang a bell, would give them steak. After some repetitions of that, when they would hear the bell, they would drool because they knew that meant steak was coming, right? Famous psych study back in the day. That has now, been incorporated in marker training or clicker training. So we tend to see it happen organically when we start training. Enough repetitions of clicking and food, clicking and food, clicking and food. The dog picks up on that. Very easy to Google steps of how to charge the clicker, as we call it, to get your dog to associate that. But we have also found that just through your walks and your training, for a few repetitions, your dog picks up on it. So why we would go this route? That's the bigger question. Marker training can be really helpful because it serves as a memory marker for your dog. When you're trying to teach your dog something very specific, such as eye contact, it can really be kind of crystal clear for the dog as to why they're specifically being rewarded and what behavior you're specifically wanting to reward. So with the clicker, let's say we didn't have a marker in place and we were teaching our dog that we want them to look at us. If the dog's staring at something and then looks at you and you don't have a clicker, you would pull some food out and you'd hand it to him, right? Cool, your dog will probably pick up on that, but your dog's not necessarily very clear on why he got that reward, right? If that food got over to him after he started to move on to doing something else in his brain, right? He might have already moved on to doing something else, then he gets the food. We're running the risk of rewarding the dog for a behavior that he may not actually know what he's rewarded for. It might be a behavior that we don't even want to reward. So if the marker, which can be a click, you can also just use your voice. If you don't have a clicker on you, you can just pick whatever you want the marker to be. Yes, click, good, just a consistent marker. When you have that in place, so the dog looks at you, click, and then food, it might take you a couple seconds to get that food in there, but that's okay because he knows, he hears that click right when the behavior happens, and that means to him, sweet, what I just did when I heard that clicker is why food came 2 seconds later. So it's like a bridge, and he understands, great, that behavior that I did when I heard that tone is why I got food a couple seconds later. So it's really, it crystallizes it for him as to what he should keep doing to keep earning that reward. Hopefully that's making sense. So with marker training, it's the click, it's yes, whatever tone you've picked, you just got to stay really consistent with it, okay? It can be whatever you want, just be consistent. The good thing about the clicker is that it's going to be the same, right? It's a consistent tone. So if I say yes, but Amy says yes, we're going to sound different, right? So the clicker's great because it's just a very consistent tone. Verbal's fine too, just stay consistent. Yes, yes, yes. If you're using a verbal marker, try not to fluctuate a lot in your tone or your intonation and stuff like that. Just a very neutral, consistent tone, okay? Now, bringing that into teaching a specific behavior. We talked about eye contact. Eye contact is our favorite behavior to teach. Why that is because the way we put it, what your dog is looking at is what they're thinking about. So if your dog is checking in with you on a walk all the time, they're not as prone to getting into trouble because they're looking at you, right? They're not noticing the squirrel running by or the little yappy dog running by or the bicycle rolling by. All of those things happen naturally, but if we can teach the dog that foundation of the person at the end of your leash exists and they're really meaningful and it's impactful to check in with them a lot and seek guidance from them, it's going to be a much more partnership in that walk, right? It's not going to, we've all had that walk where we're inconsequential, our dog's just pulling us around all over the place, looking for anything they can look for, and we don't really exist. So if we can condition that dog to understand that the person is really worth checking in with, it's going to be a much more enjoyable walk. So we want to condition eye contact, though. We don't want to ask for or cue eye contact. That isn't the end of the world. There are a lot of great trainers that teach that. I think there's a lot of usages for that. But we choose to, I think, take it a step further, and we want to teach the dog eye contact as an environmental cue, not something we ask him to do. The difference is, so let's say our dog is overly excited about other dogs walking by, which a lot of people have dogs like that. If we tell him look on a command, right? If we make eye contact on a command and he's looking at a dog, he's looking, and we haven't caught it yet, we haven't seen that dog yet, he's like, well, I haven't heard look yet, so I'm just going to keep staring. I'm going to start barking. No one's told me look yet, right? So I don't want to have to be a step ahead of him forever. I want to instead teach him that another dog in the environment, that's his cue to find his person, right? Dog shows up, person. Dog shows up, person. We can do that by conditioning eye contact. So when I say conditioning eye contact, at some point when you have him out in public and he's staring at something, he's going to look away, right? At some point he's going to look away from that. You might need to back up farther away from said stimuli, but at some point he's going to look away. When he looks away, you're going to click and treat that, mark and reward that. You're building that foundation of disengaging from the object. All right, I look away, click and treat. Look away, click and treat. You're shaping this behavior. After some repetitions of that, you'll get stingier. You're not going to just reward looking away anymore. You're going to wait for him to look more towards your general vicinity, right? Click and treat for that. Click and treat for that. Great. You guys are probably already with me. Now we're going to get stingier, and we're not going to just reward for looking towards you. We're now going to actually start rewarding for looking at you. And then we'll get from there, not just looking at my body, but actually eye contact. And then that's how we can graduate to full-on conditioning of eye contact when out in public, especially as it relates to different stimulus out there. So that's an explanation of how we teach eye contact, why we think eye contact is so important to teach, and why we love to condition it rather than cue it, and then how to utilize this handy-dandy clicker or just a verbal marker to teach very specific behavior such as eye contact, just so much easier for the dog to understand. So we're going to see Amy Jones, our adoption follow-up coordinator, and they're going to start working on some clicking and some eye contact to see how we can start shaping this behavior of eye contact to kind of give you a demonstration of how to teach it from scratch. All right, guys, so now we are building off that eye contact stuff, and now we are going to start using this out in the real world, real life stuff, trying to teach our dog how to look at us when we're out on a walk with things like another dog around. So there's a dog out in the distance, and we know a lot of dogs are distracted by that. They may know to look at you when there aren't distractions around, when they're in the house, but now we want to start shaping and conditioning the behavior of eye contact outside. And we really want the dog to understand that another dog in the environment, that's their cue for eye contact, not waiting for you to say something, not waiting for you to cue it yourself. So we've got Izzy here. She is definitely interested in that dog out in the distance. Now Amy is finding the distance to be at to where she's interested in that dog, but she's not too far past threshold. We're hoping that she can still kind of be in a teachable brain right now. So you've seen that she's looked away from the other dog in the distance. Whenever she looks away, Amy is marking and rewarding. So right now she's using just a verbal marker. She'll probably use a clicker here and there too, just to show you how both are utilized. So she looks at the dog. At first, guys, it's as simple as when she looks away from the distraction, which is the dog in this case, she looks away. You mark and reward. Yes and food, or click and food, and that's how we start building from scratch the idea of another dog in the environment means eye contact. Eye contact might be too complicated or specific of a behavior for her to know right away, right? That's why we're taking these approximations. She looks at the distraction, she looks away, mark and reward. And then after that, we start to get pickier and we'll mark her and reward her for looking at you. Now, Izzy's picking up on this very quickly. Amy might decide to, and it's up to her, but she might decide to close the gap a little bit and maybe move a little bit more inward to create a little bit more of a challenge. But we're probably about good at this distance for this session, and we're looking for opportunities to be conditioning, rewarding her for looking at the dog, then looking at Amy or away from the dog. So we're watching closely. She's, at this point, I don't think looking at the dog. We're just kind of waiting. I think she's looking, I might have the decoy dog move a little bit, we'll see. But Amy's looking for moments to just build this thorough foundation, nice, of looking away from the distraction or looking at me, which is the best, is how you get food. So her timing is crucial here, right? Anytime she looks at Amy or has looked away from the other dog, that's when we are marking and rewarding. She's looking, she's pulling, she looked away, Amy marked and rewarded. That marker has to happen the very second she looks away or looks at Amy. The treats can come a couple seconds later. That's okay, as long as the marker is timed well. So that's either, again, your voice or the clicker, whatever you're more comfortable using is fine. And it's up to you in your session. So she's looking at the other dog, she's looking, Amy's waiting, right? She looked away, Amy marked and rewarded. Very good example right there. It's up to you on, you have to always be mindful of challenging your dog appropriately to push them through certain, goals in your training, while also not setting your dog up for failure by putting way too much on them in one session or pushing them into scenarios that they're not ready for. So that's why we have this threshold right now. We want to start at a place where we can be successful, but we also don't want to start so far away that we're not dealing with reality, right? Because we know that we're not always going to be this far away, but we want to be true and proper with what's right, and that's why we're not going to start her right up close to another dog. That might be way too much to ask of her, and we might have blown her threshold. So this is a good starting point for Izzy as an individual based on what she's shown us. Some dogs may need to start way farther back. Some dogs can start much farther up, depending on their specific level of distraction and excitement and eagerness when it comes to other dogs or whatever the distraction is that you're working them through. But we've already seen her start to offer more and more eye contact. This is just really her first session on learning this concept of eye contact out in public around distractions. So Amy's continuing to build that foundation of looking away from the other dog means you get food, and then we're hoping that translates in the next few repetitions to full-on eye contact. So that's the drill, you guys. This is likely a video that we will recommend you watching potentially if you've contacted us for issues like your dog is maybe barking or pulling towards other dogs on walks. This is a common area where we're gonna start you out. So it's something that would be good to watch, to start implementing, and it's something that you might do before you meet with us in person. Just one of the many resources we want to offer you guys. That was a great one right there. That was some full-on eye contact right there. That's great. Now she's looking at Amy consistently, and we're obviously going to take that. That's great. So yeah, guys, this is great. Try it. Let us know if you have questions, obviously. And that was a really, I think, a good representation of how it's going to first start out with conditioning eye contact out in public with a dog around as a distraction. Thanks, guys. That was great.